Today we are going to discuss about the traditional approach to capital structure, and that approach is net income approach. Deciding the capital structure is one of the most important tasks for every firm, and the optimum capital structure is that structure for which every firm strives. According to this approach, a firm can minimize the weighted average cost of capital and can increase the value of a firm, or you can also call it as the market price of shares. There are various theories which propagates the ideal capital mix or the capital structure for a firm. Different kinds of theories have been propounded by different authors and practitioners to explain the relationship between the capital structure, cost of capital and value of firm. However, the theory which I am talking about is net income approach, and this theory propounds that the company can increase the value of firm and can decrease the overall cost of capital by increasing the proportion of debt in its capital structure. Capital structure is about the ratio of debt and equity, and the optimum capital structure can differ from one organization to the another organization. In the same way, the ratio of debt and equity can differ from one organization to the another organization. But according to this theory, whenever we are going to increase the ratio of debt with respect to the equities in the total capital of a firm, the overall cost of capital needs to decrease. And since value of the firm and overall cost of capital shows a vice versa relationship with each other, whenever the overall cost of capital will decrease, then obviously the value of the firm tends to increase. This approach is based upon certain assumptions. The first assumption to this theory is that the cost of debt is less than the cost of equity. And the reasons for assuming cost of debt to be less than the cost of equity are that interest rates are usually lower than dividend rates due to the element of risk and the benefits of tax, as the interest is deductible expenses. Now the second assumption is that there are no taxes. These assumptions are being made just for the sake of simplicity. And the third one is the risk perception of investors is not going to change by the use of debt. That is, the risk perception of the already existing investor is going to stay constant. But before starting with the theory, you have to be familiar with few of the terms. And these terms are cost of capital, leverage, and weighted average cost of capital. As you all know that the firm has got various sources of financing being available to him from where he can raise its money. But there is some cost associated with each and every source. There are basically three kinds of sources being available to a firm. The number one is equity, number second is preference shares, and the third one is debentures. Whenever an investor lends money to the firm, either by investing his money in equity shares or debentures or maybe the preference shares, he expects something in return from his investment. And the same minimum required rate of return becomes the cost of capital for a firm. The cost of equity may be denoted as this symbol. The cost of preference share may be denoted as this symbol, and the cost of debentures may be denoted as this symbol. The term leverage is nothing but the capital structure of a firm. The use of debt with the equities leads to the financial leverage. Whenever we are going to mix more and more of equities with the debt, we are going to increase the financial leverage in the capital structure of a firm. Now the next most important term which you should know about is weighted average cost of capital, which is denoted by this symbol. The formula to the weighted average cost of capital is wherein, as I have discussed, that this stands for cost of equity, this symbol stands for after tax cost of debt, and this stands for the cost of preference shares. However, wherein W1, W2 and W3 stands for the weight or the proportion of each of the securities in the capital structure. So by looking at the formula, The overall cost of capital or the weighted average cost of capital is directly or indirectly is related to the cost of capital of each of the securities individually and the proportion of the money invested in each of the securities. Now let me introduce you to the model of net income approach. As you can see from the model, the net income approach basically shows the effect of leverage on overall cost of capital. As you can see that we have taken degree of leverage on the x-axis of the model and we have taken cost of capital on the y-axis of the model. So this model basically shows the relationship of degree of leverage and the cost of capital. In this model you can see that we have denoted three different signs for the cost of capital, wherein KD stands for cost of debt, wherein KE stands for cost of equity, and as we have discussed that KO stands for weighted average cost of capital. Looking at our first assumption, which says that the cost of debt is less than the cost of equity and it is stable by nature, that's why we have taken less cost of capital and the cost of equity is more than the cost of debt. Suppose in this model the cost of debt is 10%, then the cost of equity will be more than the cost of debt and it will be 15%. You can easily see from the example that whenever the degree of leverage has been increased, that is whenever the debt is increased in the capital structure, the weighted average cost of capital starts to decline. Suppose a company has a capital of 10 lakhs, which I have already discussed in one example even before, and company has got this money from 20 lakhs from debt at the rate of 10% and rest of 80 lakhs from equity share capital. At this point of time, you can easily see that the degree of leverage in this kind of organization is bit less and the ratio of debt and equity is 1:4. Suppose in this model we are standing at this point where the degree of leverage is 20 lakhs. By looking at the model, you can easily see that at this point of time, the weighted average cost of capital had started to decline. Suppose in the same example, if the company is going to change the ratio of its capital structure by involving 50% of the debt capital, then obviously the debt equity ratio will become 1:1. By this, we will move ahead to this point. So by increasing the debt in the capital structure, one can easily find out that the overall cost of capital has been decreased, and whenever more and more amount of debt is being used in the capital structure, the overall cost of capital will keep on increasing up till a point where it is going to meet the cost of debt. This point shows that the company has raised all of the capital just by raising the debt funds. However, this point denotes that the company is totally equity financed. And as I have told you that this point denotes that the company is altogether debt financed firm. We have discussed the relationship of value of a firm with respect to the cost of capital. You very well know that when the cost of capital decreases, as we have seen in the previous model, then obviously the value of the firm should increase. Now the value of the firm is denoted by a symbol V, which stands for the total market value of a firm, and it can be calculated as S plus D, wherein S stands for market value of equity shares and D stands for market value of debt. And the formula to calculate the cost of capital is earning before interest and tax, that is EBIT, divided by the value of firm, which is denoted by a symbol V. And I have told you that whenever the cost of capital decreases, that is whenever the KO decreases, the market value, that is V, should increase. Now let's check it by using an example. There are two firms, A and B. They are identical in all respect except of the debt equity mix. The only difference is between their capital structure. The firm A has issued 12% debentures of rupees 15 lakhs and firm B has no debts. The tax rate applicable to them is 50% and the cost of equity is 20%. We are provided with the earning before interest and tax, and both of the firms have earnings of 6 lakh rupees. Since firm A has issued debentures, that's why we need to deduct interests at the rate of 12% of the capital from the earnings of firm A. But the firm B doesn't have any debt. That's why we don't need to deduct anything from firm B's earning. Now we are left with 4,20,000 for the firm A and the same amount of 6 lakhs for the firm B. After that we need to deduct the taxes at the rate of 50% from the earnings left after paying the interests. So we are left with 2,10,000 for the firm A, that is earning after tax is 2,10,000 and the earnings after tax for the firm B is 3 lakhs. Now it's been given that the cost of equity is 20% for both of the firms. Using this, we can easily calculate the market value of equity, which according to the formula is written as S. And the formula to calculate the market value of equity is net income divided by the cost of equity. Now, in this example, the net income for the firm A is 2,10,000 and for the firm B it's 3 lakhs. And the market value of equity can be calculated as 10,50,000 and for the firm B it's 15 lakhs. And we already know that the market value of debt for the firm A is 15 lakhs and the firm B doesn't have any debt. That's why the market value of debt for the firm B will be nil. By this we can easily calculate the total value of firm, which is denoted by a symbol V, which is 25 lakhs 50,000 for the firm A and it's 15 lakhs for the firm B. From this example, you can easily see that the firm A who is using the debt financing has a greater total value, that is 25,50,000, and the firm B who is not using the debt financing has a lesser value, that is 15 lakh rupees. Maybe the cost of capital of firm B. So you can easily see that when more and more of debt are being involved in the total capital structure, the cost of capital decreases and the value of the firm increases. Thank you.